Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Wayne Elliott. I'm a natural health advocate and have been for over 20 years since meeting Jim Strauss Sr. That was the most fortunate day of my life, meeting Jim. And previous to that, I guess the most fortunate day was starting on the Strauss Heart Drops several months before I met Jim. I want to first say this is not an advertisement for Strauss. This is me talking about my extensive experience over 20-odd years. Certainly some of his teachings that has helped me understand what I believe I do. And my own personal experience, my own body, and various supplements like Strauss Heart Drops, the experience of many family, close friends, ex-teammates, thousands of people that I talked to at lectures and radio shows over the years. And in everyday life, I'll talk to anybody who will talk to me about this stuff. So these are my opinions through my personal experience only. It's the only thing I will talk about is things that I'm like from Missouri, the show me state. I believe nothing that I hear and have to see with my own eyes. So please trust me that this is 100% my own personal experience, opinions, and things that I've developed through the teachings of Jim Strauss Sr. I wanted to share with you a story or two. The most profound experience of my life was just over 20 years ago when I met Jim and Peter Strauss. I spent a great deal of time with Jim Strauss and became his student. And over the course of several years, we spent many months together. Jim would come and stay with me here in Ontario, and he taught me so much, which I'll be forever grateful for. Saved my life first with the Strauss Heart Drops, changed my life, and has allowed me to be some part of helping many, many people since then. Jim taught that nature had everything in perfect proportion, and everything in nature was perfect and connected. And it was just, as I say, the most profound experience of my life was my relationship with Jim Strauss. He developed these heart drops for himself in 1980 after a massive heart attack. We knew very little about cholesterol and the trouble that it can cause and plaque buildup in those days. And instead of having the quadruple bypass that they urged Jim to have, he was lucky he had his heart attack a half a block from the Vancouver hospital. So he pulled into the parking lot, laid on his horn. They came out and got him and told him that he could die that day if he did not have immediate open heart surgery, bypass surgery. Instead, Jim elected to take a medical helicopter home to his home in Kamloops, BC. And he and his son Peter spent several hours. I've heard the story many times. They knew the herbs that they needed, and as Jim always said, like a fine soup or a fine chef would do, it's the right ingredients in the perfect proportion. And the Strausses had a very unusual method of making herbal medicine. Peter Strauss is the 8th generation herbalist in the family, medicine man. But they learned their craft and putting herbs together by taste. And just like a fine cook or chef or your mother would do before she served you soup, she would check to see if it needed a little salt or needed something else to perfect it. Well, that's how the Strauss family puts together medicinal formulas, herbal formulas, is by taste. So I take it took them 3 hours or so to discuss, he and Peter. Jim had severe angina. He couldn't walk and he couldn't lay down for the angina pain. So he sat in an easy chair. He and Peter discussed the herbs that they felt they needed. I mean, it was just genius the way they put their formulas together. And later that day, Peter gathered the herbs. They were medicine men. They made various herbal formulas for people, as I say, for 8 generations. And they made what's today the Strauss Heart Drops. They didn't know how much to take, so Jim drank per day what we consider a 2 or 3 week supply today. He didn't know how much to take, so that's what he did. Well, without a surgery or a pill, in 2.5 weeks, he was able to walk to his mailbox And in 6 or 6.5 weeks, he went back to work for another 25 years. Never did have a pill, never did have a surgery, did have clear arteries after taking heart drops, which he took every day for the rest of his life. I've taken it every day for over 20 years now, and I just will be forever grateful for what it's done for me. The earlobe crease. The creases on the side of the bottom of our earlobes are the best indicator and predictor of clogged arteries, and in fact they are a better indicator than all of the others put together. If you have an earlobe crease on one side only, in my opinion, it's the best indicator that you have clogging on that side of your body, those arteries. If you had it on the other side, well, it would be the other side. If, like me, you have the earlobe crease on both ears, it's a great indicator, better than all the other indicators put together, experts say, that you have clogging on both sides. So check the mirror yourself and consider Strauss heart drops if you find those creases there especially. Folks, I think it's been called the cholesterol myth for more than one reason. First of all, the basic premise that high blood cholesterol is a real sign of danger. Remember, the blood system is the only transportation system in our body, so water, food, wastewater, oxygen, and toxins must also travel through the blood. So if the Strauss heart drops dissolve your plaque, there is only that one transportation system, the blood system, for it to carry it. The second thing, I think, is that the reason they call it the myth is that 8 out of 10 heart attack victims have low blood cholesterol. When I wasn't well, my blood cholesterol level was ideal, apparently. I had all the angina symptoms, but they would never have, and never did, a doctor recommend statin drugs to me. So it seems as though the myth is really that the conventional wisdom has it exactly the opposite. If it's floating in your blood, it isn't stuck and therefore not restricting or blocking blood flow. However, that blood cholesterol test does not indicate where plaque may be stuck in you. So it's ironic, really, that they treat people with high blood cholesterol generally, and yet 8 out of 10 heart attack victims, 80%, have low blood cholesterol, which to me indicates the cholesterol is stuck in plaque. And then, of course, in my experience and thousands of others I know, when you do take Strauss heart drops, your blood cholesterol level goes up because you've dissolved that plaque, or as you dissolve plaque, it carries into your bloodstream so that you can be rid of it. Diabetes, they say, is caused to a large extent by our diet, and it seems from most of what I've read and learned that these refined carbohydrates are the biggest culprit. I just read not so long ago that in Saudi Arabia, they virtually had no diabetes, their population, until they adopted the North American fast food foods and had a taste for those. And apparently now 40% of the citizens of Saudi Arabia are diabetic. So these refined carbs are really the biggest enemy, I think. All the baked goods and breads and so forth. There is no original wheat any longer. We know that, one of the world's staples. There's some 200 strains of wheat, but they're all genetically modified. The same with corn. And so there are many things today that can help to harm us, but the refined carbs, sugars, in all their forms seem to be the biggest culprit for diabetes. Now, in my extensive experience, again, talking to thousands of people, it has been truly incredible how the Strauss heart drops have helped diabetics. This is my own experience, my own opinion, talking to the people directly. And diabetics can really suffer badly, the pain in their feet and so forth. And of course, they're at risk of losing parts of themselves, toes, feet, legs, eyesight. And it's almost at epidemic proportions, really, diabetes is. So in my opinion, from my experience, diabetics are people that should take Strauss heart drops every day for the rest of their lives. I've just had some incredible, wonderful experiences with people that didn't lose any more toes. For example, got off their pain medications because they didn't need them anymore. And I mean loads and loads of stories and personal experiences. So from my experience, a diabetic is wise to take. You don't need extra by any means. In my experience, between a quarter and a half a drop or 3 times a day is plenty. You just need to keep it in your system because blood flow is your biggest nemesis. And not getting blood everywhere and anywhere in our body is obviously going to lead to a problem. But for diabetics, that blood flow is so crucial, and in my experience, there truly is nothing like Strauss heart drops. With regards to statin drugs, there's another important thing that I believe, need to be aware of. One of the things that statin drugs, to the best of my knowledge, does not claim to do or purport to do is to remove any existing plaque or cholesterol. To the best of my understanding, the statin drugs somewhat shutter our liver's function to produce less cholesterol. And what results are looked for? That your blood cholesterol level lowers to a more ideal rate. Well, we've already discussed the cholesterol myth. But I think it's important to note that once it's been determined by a doctor that you're advised to go on statin drugs, those drugs do not purport to clean out existing plaque and cholesterol. So it's kind of like slowing or trying to arrest the process of you having true cholesterol problems with plaque restricting or blocking blood flow. Jim Strauss had several beliefs and theories that were kind of his trademark, and he said them many times. He said them at lectures, and one was, if you're not made from it, it cannot fix you. In other words, to expect chemicals to cure or fix us would be like taking our car to the lumber yard to try and repair with 2x4 lumber. He'd say, you can't do it. You need materials the automobile's made from, steel and rubber and copper wire and the rest. And our bodies, he'd say, are no different. The only things that can truly cure or fix us are cells that we're made from. And hence the great success with some natural formulas and supplements that we've seen over history. We're made from those cells, so it makes sense. Another thing that Jim would always say is that everything that our bodies need has been provided by nature. And I've come to believe all these things just through my own personal experience. And I do believe that's certainly true, that everything that we'll need or ever need is provided by nature. Just not too many years ago, Jim discovered 3 antibiotic herbs in the lower mainland BC, and he told me that we don't have any sickness for them yet. And I said, so what does that mean to you? He said, there's more ailments and diseases coming, because everything that we need, nature has provided. He had just never seen these 3 that were antibiotic herbs before. One other thing that he would say is that for natural formulas to work as intended, you of course need all of the proper ingredients, but most importantly, in the proper proportion. And Jim would refer to our mothers or our grandmothers or a fine chef making a nice meal or a soup and always tasting it before serving it to the family or the friends or customers, just to make sure it didn't need a little something more to perfect it. And he always said that natural supplements and medicines were the same thing, needed all those proper ingredients in exactly the right proportion, which of course the Strauss craft was done by taste, quite a unique method that the Strauss family had over the 8 generations that they've been making supplements and natural medicines. Jim Strauss always said, to make great natural medicine, you need the right ingredients in the perfect proportion. And this is some formula, I can assure you. As I do on the radio all the time, I swear with my life that you cannot be hurt and you will not be disappointed with the Strauss Heart Drops. They are the perfect ingredients in the perfect proportion to do what they're designed to do, and that's to make blood flow everywhere you have an artery, vessel, or vein to carry it, to the tiniest capillaries in your skin. If you're grayish blue skin right now and you take Strauss Heart Drops, I can tell you from experience, you will soon have even colored. You won't be gray and blue because you will have blood flow to your skin. And that's always an indicator. Even color is very important. Not to be grayish blue is very important. So we all probably know or have seen people like that. And I always stress a little bit when I do see people, and I always talk to them about the heart drops and ask them about their health. So you are meant to have even color because that means blood is flowing right out to your skin. That's our largest organ. There are just so many things that can be affected by your blood flow, and so many things that can be negatively affected when you have no blood flow, or certainly reduced blood flow to any part of your body, right down to the tiniest vessels. We are meant to have full blood flow everywhere we have a vessel, in those many miles of veins and vessels and arteries that we have in our body and capillaries. Miles and miles of them, we are meant to have them full of blood. And when we don't, there'll be an issue of some kind eventually. The body's a pretty amazing machine when you think of it, much better than any man-made machine. Our car couldn't go long at all without oil or fuel if that flow was restricted. So the human body is quite an amazing machine, and it does know what to do with natural ingredients. So natural substances. It does not know what to do with chemicals. And that's why a lot of the heck from pharmaceuticals and other chemicals in our lives, emissions, the 160,000 airplane flights a day, the chemicals we're surrounded with in our homes, we wash with, clean with, wash our clothes with, sometimes our skin and our hair with, brush our teeth with, we are surrounded by chemicals. We all know what chlorine does when we swim in a swimming pool, where chlorine is used. Well, now it's in drinking water in many cities. So imagine what it might be doing to our insides. Jim Strauss always believed, and I'm certainly convinced, that causes of cancer, major causes of cancer, are chemicals and genetically modified foods. Man-made foods. Some call them Franken foods. Looks like an orange, tastes like an orange, must be an orange. Well, no, it isn't. There haven't been any natural oranges in a long time. There hasn't been any natural corn in decades. These man-made foods, Jim Strauss said many years ago, they lack the enzymes. We're born with a handful of enzymes. If we use them up, we're dead. And we cannot duplicate nature. We know that. Everyone knows that. And yet we've tried to do that with our foods, and they've done a good job at making them look good and taste good, many of them. But those missing enzymes, that's where Strauss always warned the trouble would be. Since scientists have told us there's actually some further harm potential with genetically modified foods. The shocking thing is, it's very tough to get by without them, since 93% of products in our grocery stores are or contain genetically modified organisms. So it's harder and harder to eat properly every day, to eat healthy, to eat organic, natural foods. I mean, they have organic, seedless grapes. Organic, man-made, artificial, if you will, grapes. I would rather have the natural foods that were here from the beginning and that we're meant to have. So these, combined with the chemicals that are surrounding us in our lives, Strauss always believed were the major causes of cancer, which today is at almost epidemic proportions compared to when I was young. I would say that go back 50 years, probably very few people knew someone with cancer. Fast forward to today, who doesn't know someone with cancer? It's again, just the disease has, like diabetes, gone to almost epidemic stages. Seedless foods. It takes a seed to reproduce anything in this world. A pine tree, a human being, a giraffe, a frog, they all take a seed. And so to have seedless foods, or foods that have seeds you can't do anything with, and I suppose that's to help trick us that we're eating natural food. It seems kind of evil to me, but seedless foods cannot reproduce themselves. Therefore, they have weak immune systems themselves. We eat the seedless foods, and what would you suspect happens with our immune system? It can become weaker. There are new syndromes and diseases, it seems, all the time. And as the old saying goes, we are what we eat. Well, a lot of the things that we eat now are not natural. They are not as nature intended them. Some of them do not have seeds. And this weak immune system of the plant itself, to make things worse, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, insecticides, and different fertilizers and so forth are needed all the time on these foods that lack their own strong immune system. So on top of it all, there's more chemicals than ever on our foods. It's a bad combination. So as difficult as it is, we should do our best to eat good foods and natural foods, but there's never been a time where supplementing our health with various supplements. For example, I take full spectrum minerals because for years we've known that our soil generally is depleted of minerals. So if it isn't in the food, you need to get it somehow. You maybe suffer cramps, leg cramps, foot cramps at night. Make sure you're drinking enough water and consider full spectrum minerals because it's what's missing from a lot of our foods. The natural medicine, again, like the Strauss heart drops, folks, they work despite the pharmaceuticals. Our doctors are taught in medical school they cannot recommend natural medicine to you. It's against the rules of the College of Physicians and Surgeons. And primarily that's because they don't know if there's any effect in combination with their pharmaceuticals. What I find bewildering is when they do clinical studies, they need clean bodies. You can't be on any pharmaceuticals when you're a test study candidate. You must have a clean body in that respect. And then they test one at a time on people who are not taking any other pharmaceuticals. Now, what ends up happening to many people is they're taking 4, 5, 8, 10 different chemical drugs. No one's done a study on that. They study them one at a time. I don't think our bodies know what these chemicals are doing inside us, and I don't think the chemicals themselves necessarily know what each other are doing. So this is not a promotion for chemical drugs. It's really a caution. Further today, our system really is broken because every disease is on the rise. Doctors have never been busier. Pharmacists have never been busier. And just recently, pharmacists have admitted that they cannot take the time to read sometimes the hundreds of pages they would have to read for side effects, contraindications between drugs to fill your prescription. These are busy people, so you could imagine if they had to read even 10 pages before filling your prescription, they couldn't do it. Now, I don't know why there isn't a computer program to do this, to help the pharmacists protect us, because they are there to protect us when they dispense the drugs, or why there isn't the same system that doctors perhaps could use to ensure that we aren't prescribed drugs that contraindicate with one another. But apparently there is no such system available today. So, folks, we have to watch out for ourselves. If you are taking pharmaceuticals, please read the paperwork that comes with it. Pay attention to it, focus on it, and make sure you're not taking something that could harm you together with something else that you're taking. I'm happy to say that Strauss heart drops and many natural formulas otherwise don't have those risks and dangers. Your body knows what to do with them. If you don't need them, just like if you ate too many apples like I did on Apple Day as a Cub Scout, your body will get rid of them safely and naturally. It's so invigorating when you increase your blood flow by removing plaque and cholesterol and opening up arteries, veins, and vessels. There are so many good things possible in addition to clearing your main arteries to prevent a heart attack, or your carotid arteries prevent a stroke. There are so many things that can happen. People's hair color change back to their normal color at times. Some people that thought they had arthritis, instead it turned out to be calcium buildup on a joint, and then when the soft tissues rub against that sandpaper-like calcium, it's been mistaken for arthritis. The heart drops have been very effective, shown to be very effective to remove that calcium, as well as plaque and cholesterol, as well as the stringy fat cholesterol that we get in our carotid arteries that restricts blood flow to our brain. Our brain uses 20% of the oxygen that we take in. So if we have too little oxygen, our brain gets 20% of too little oxygen, so it doesn't get what it needs, nor does our heart. And that's when the most serious things like stroke and heart attack happen. So the thing to know is, and not to be alarmed about, if you need Strauss heart drops and you begin taking them, your blood cholesterol level will go up. Mine went from what they would have said was perfect, 3.0, 20 odd years ago, when I had angina and every angina symptom, chest pains, night sweats, leg cramps, shortness of breath. I had every symptom. I made excuses for most of them. The night sweats were the one that I couldn't come up with a good excuse for myself. Anyway, I was very lucky to find the Strauss heart drops and began taking them that day. When you dissolve the plaque, when the heart drops work to dissolve plaque and cholesterol, there's only one highway, one transportation system, and that's our blood system, that cholesterol must move through on the way to us getting rid of it, generally in the washroom. So in my own case, my blood cholesterol level, I checked every 4 or 5 months. I went for a blood test. It made sense to me after Jim Strauss's teachings that my blood cholesterol level should go up as the Strauss heart drops dissolve that plaque. Well, that's exactly what happened. My own doctor was shocked. My blood cholesterol level went to 8, 8.1, 8.2, and it stayed there for over a year. I was pretty plugged up with plaque. When a blood test revealed that I dropped to 4.5, it made sense to me that I was getting close to the end of being cleared out. And sure enough, the blood test following that, I was back to 3.0 again, which is where I started when I wasn't well, but this time I was actually well. It's hard to describe how invigorating it is when you do increase your blood flow. And I'd have to say that the more plaque and cholesterol, the more clogged your arteries are, the more invigorating it is as you increase that blood flow. If you had an artery that was 90% blocked, and in a couple of months, 10% of that plaque was removed so that your blood flow was doubled, it's very hard to describe how invigorating that is. So we came to tell people that for the first 5 months or so on Strauss heart drops, notwithstanding you may feel like Superman as I did, you're not, and you need to make sure that you have enough blood flow. So we ask folks not to do anything more strenuous than they were doing before they started heart drops for 4 or 5 months. And then, as Jim Strauss used to say, then you can go and chase rabbits. And when your blood cholesterol level, after taking the Strauss heart drops, drops back down to a normal level, it indicates that you've cleared out most of your cholesterol. And in my case, I went from feeling 20 years older than I was at the time to feeling 20 years younger. and I still do. I mean, blood flow, folks, is the most important body function. And in my experience over more than 20 years now, with thousands of people on the radio and at lectures, the Strauss heart drops are a very effective, painless way to solve any plaque buildup and cholesterol problem. Western medicine's answer to cholesterol is with the statin drugs, and oftentimes with blood thinners. In fact, I understand that the statin drugs are the largest selling pharmaceuticals in the world, billions and billions of dollars worth. And how they purport to work is, because your liver produces cholesterol, and it produces it because it's one of the functions that we need, otherwise our body wouldn't produce it, our liver wouldn't produce it. So the statin drugs effectively govern down or shutter your liver's function. And that would be okay, except your liver has hundreds of duties. Producing cholesterol is only one of them. And it's never seemed right to me that we would shutter or govern down any organ. We certainly wouldn't want to do it with our heart or our kidneys or any organ as far as I'm concerned. The thing that's most distressing to me is that the manufacturers of these statin drugs warn and tell us to get a blood test monthly, and that's to check for liver enzymes. The danger, of course, is hurting your liver. Some of the early statin drugs were found to actually disintegrate people's muscles, particularly leg muscles. But the idea of governing down an organ to produce less cholesterol has never made a bit of sense to me. It just seems contrary to what we should do. And as I said, all of the functions that the liver has, we'd also be governing down those or some of those as well. Very distressing to me that of the hundreds and hundreds of people that I talk to, there are very few, I would have to say a handful of people that are actually getting that monthly blood test to check for liver enzymes, to check if it's damaging your liver. That distresses me because the manufacturers, in their defense, the pharmaceutical companies tell us to have that blood test to ensure our livers aren't being damaged. So if you are on the statin drugs, folks, I would really urge you to ask your doctor for that blood test. I've known people, one of my old football coaches, I hadn't seen him in a couple of years, and when I saw him, I was just shocked. And it was like he was inflated with air. He was like a balloon. And it was shocking to me to see. And I asked him if he was on statin drugs, and he was. I also asked him how long. He told me 2 years, and that he had not had a blood test. Thankfully, that day I convinced him, I had a bottle in my car, and I convinced him to start Strauss heart drops. He stopped his statin drugs that day. Thankfully, statin drugs are not amongst the drugs, some of the heavy heart and blood pressure medications that you could not quit just all of a sudden. You would have to be weaned off them slowly and gradually. For some of these medications, there's as much danger stopping them as there is being on them. And again, in the manufacturer's defense, they do warn us of all the potential side effects and potential harm that can come to us. So it's not fashionable to read all that paperwork, but we're best if we do. And so I would urge anyone on statin drugs to get a blood test regularly to see that you are not being harmed. And I would more strongly suggest that you consider taking Strauss heart drops. It's painless. It's a very reasonable price. It would cost about $1 a day to take Strauss heart drops. There's no surgery. There's no medications for life. You just clean the plaque out and get the blood flow. Open heart surgeries, stents, bypasses, they deal with the most clogged part of an artery, but they cannot change our whole artery out. Just like if your farm tractor or your vehicle had a pinched hose or a pinched tube that was carrying liquids, we would change the whole hose or tube. We wouldn't bypass or do a small part of it. Well, they don't have that option with our heart arteries, so hence the open heart surgeries and the stents and the angioplasties. Even the angiogram to determine how much cholesterol and blockage we have itself carries its own risks going into a main artery like that. So with the Strauss heart drops, as I said, it's painless, it's very effective. In my experience, there have been many, many thousands of people like myself been helped and returned back to good health. Both my parents, several of my best friends, several of my former teammates, and the thousands of people that I've talked to at lectures and on the radio over these past 20 odd years. So thanks again to Jim and Peter Strauss. God bless them. Jim has passed away now, and I'll never forget him for all the things that he taught me, in addition to saving and changing my life, of course, and certainly a profound experience. So have your own profound experience and try the Strauss heart drops. And Health Canada has determined it's 100% safe. There's no contraindications with any pharmaceuticals that you might be taking. It's like food and drugs. They're complete opposites. So there is no risk, there is no harm can come to you. And the 100% guarantee, there truly is no risk. You can't be duped out of your money, and you can't be harmed, notwithstanding you may well be taking other pharmaceuticals. So try what I did and change your life. And just generally, folks, in closing, just a few things. Make sure you drink plenty of water. It's nature's best blood thinner, and you need it for many things, including creating the mucus to clear out your sinus, clear out your respiratory. So drink plenty of water. It's about the best thing you can drink. Get some exercise. The good Lord gave us legs and arms for a reason. Even if it's just a leisurely stroll, it's a wonderful thing for you. It's the best way to burn off what I call bad energy. Eat some fresh vegetables, eat some fresh fruits. Try and stay away from all the packaged foods, the heavy salt, the heavy sugar, the refined carbs, as few baked goods as possible. Love your family, be happy, and take your Strauss heart drops. You won't be sorry. You have my word on it. I swear to you with my life. Thank you very much for listening, and God bless you.